All right, everybody, thank you for joining us for this Officiate Michigan Day baseball breakout. This presentation is going to be provided to you by Jack Miles. Jack was a college umpire, 20-year high school umpire, has been a clinician with the Southeast Michigan umpire camps, is a multi-sport official, and a true credit to him is that he has mentored over 100 legacy officials for the MHSAA. And so we've been really proud of Jack and appreciate his contributions to the high school association. And he is going to be presenting to you today a presentation entitled Deep Thoughts by Jack Miles. I hope you all enjoy. Without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Jack.
Well, thank you very much, Brent. And everybody, thank you very much for taking your time this time of the day, away from your families or just got home from work, so we appreciate it. We're some of us are between seasons. Some of us have finished up summer ball, high school ball. We're maybe going into travel leagues and tournaments. So we've been pretty much on tune of all our rules and all the other things. So I thought what we do is we'll get into some deep thoughts about the game of baseball. And I'm asking everybody to participate. And if you know how to unmute yourself, I'll ask a question, you can jump in, and if I don't get much participation, I'll just call on somebody. We'll go from there. We won't be on it for a long time, but what we want to do is reflect back on some of the things that went on during the season and some of the things you might think about for the future. So one of my thoughts is that I putting this together was save time when you work. Does anybody have any input on what I was thinking about when I had that deep thought?
Time between innings, time between half innings.
Well, that's a good one. Yes. That's a good one. Anybody else have an input? Scott?
Hi, buddy.
Hi.
I would have to throw in there also is we know mechanics, we know where to go on the field, but now we need to know and we need to pay attention to what goes on during the inning, what goes on between teams, what interaction do they have? Is it good? Is it bad? Need to know our surroundings and know what's going on, not just know where to position myself if there's runners on first, second, and third, or whatever the situation is.
Great. That's another save time when you work deep thought. And when you're done, everybody, if you could remute, that's great. My deep thought was time, only when it's necessary. And not every time somebody asks for time that you call it, you can say no. We've all experienced the person that slides into second base and the ball's not even there anymore, and it's been thrown back to the pitcher, and nobody's near the bag, and he wants time to brush himself off. We don't need time at that. We don't need time dusting off, cleaning the plate. So we don't need time to clean the rubber. Just tell the pitcher, hey, kick that off. So that was my deep thought, but that's the first slide. Mine might not be the same as yours. Second one is the safe signal can be your friend, but outs get you home. Does anybody have an input on that? You got to unmute yourself if you want to input. Well, now that we have everybody jump, go ahead. What do we got?
Yeah, I would say most of the fans and parents definitely want to get home. And so yelling strikes and outs as far as being able to get the game done. is definitely the right way to go. Safe, as you said, as your friend, but outs, we got 27 outs, and then we're going home.
Well, that's a good point, but my deep thought, and that was your deep thought, no deep thoughts are wrong, but using the safe signal to communicate appropriately and effectively, the safe signal, that's how I was thinking about it. Does anybody have an example where you can, other than at a base calling somebody safe, can be a friend?
A catch below a catch or no catch below the waist in the outfield.
Great,
A kid diving.
great. How about a runner going to angles, a runner going to first, from first to second, and the ball goes close to him? How can you use a safe signal and terminology?
You would use a safe signal to show that the ball did not hit him.
And can you verbalize too?
Yep, you'll say that's nothing.
I got nothing. Good job. My third deep thought, you can't call what you can't see. Somebody have an input on what their deep thought if on off that.
Working two-man DC, and R1 is going to the backside of second base. Sometimes you just can't get close enough to actually see whether they got the tag on or not. And so you can't call them out because you certainly didn't.
That's a good deep thought. Mine was 99% of the calls require a baseball. Keep your eyes on it. You can't go wrong. And all my life, I've heard everybody say, where does the ball take you to? The ball takes you to the play. So that was my deep thought. Not all of our deep thoughts are the same. Let's go to number 4. Don't cry wolf. What does that trigger somebody in a game of baseball on a thought? How about you, Doug?
I'm still on deep thought on that one, Jack. Don't cry wolf.
Well, this one actually, Doug, we've talked about this before. Actually, close calls need more voice and sharper mechanics, but save them for the right time. We've all had whackers. We've all had the close play where they're off the bag and you have to do the mechanic, safe off the bag. That's when you want to elevate your voice and you want to make sure you sell the call. You don't want to cry wolf. My thought was on every call, you're screaming safe and you're screaming out.
Okay.
Umpire School 101. What's everybody's thought when they see this on a thought?
Get balls and strikes right, get fair and foul right, get safe and out right.
That's really close to my thought. I like that.
Back to basics.
Don't pick
There's a
voters.
reason why. There's a reason why we have those schools and camps. I mean, it's always pretty much the same. Fair, foul, catch, no catch, etc., etc. I'm on the line, I'm on the ball. All those signals where you're covering. And that's what's great about attending any type of umpire school, camp, online videos, or even a Zoom conference like we're doing right now. Okay. They won't care, but they will blame you. Anybody got a deep thought when they see that?
They won't care when the shortstop bobbles the ball instead of throwing him out by a step and I got a whacker at first base. They won't care that Johnny didn't field the ball and get rid of it cleanly. They'll only care and complain about the safer out call at first base.
That's your deep thought. That's a great one. You are on yours, but mine was safety rules being enforced at times. It's not popular, but this isn't a popularity contest. Darkness safety calls, equipment safety calls, on deck safety calls, anything like that. A kid in the dugout sitting on the bucket with his back to the batter, and it's really close to the batting area. You might have to make a safety call. They don't care, but they'll blame you that you're not doing your job. Good job on yours, Doug.
The guy guarding the pitcher down the warming up pitcher down the right or left field line that is not down there or is not paying attention, and I have to stop the game and embarrass him to turn him around. Nobody really cares until he gets hit. Somebody gets hit down there.
You got it. Good. Thanks for the input. Doug?
Ultimate times, this is what I hear from the coaches. You are the only one that ever enforces this, and it shouldn't be. I should not have to hear that.
Yes, you are the one enforcing it today. That's a good one. Number 7, X doesn't mark your spot.
Well, Jack, I'll say
Anybody?
this has to
Go
do
ahead.
with umpires not staying in one position. Especially, I guess, when you're in B and C and working to get angles to make calls.
Yeah. I have my screen minimized, so I don't know who brought that up. Getting the play right requires you to move to get to the best possible position, and that position can change. One good example on that, on a pass ball behind a catcher on a very deep backstop, he might go to third. Why stay in the B position? Why don't you get your head on a swivel, move over to C, and you're ready for any advancement of that runner to third or whatever. The other thing is you're in a C position and there is a steal. You got to move. You're not standing there. You don't run up behind them. You move on a 45-degree angle because the ball is going to take you there. So that was my deep thought on that. The graphics correspond with some things too, so they're kind of setting that up. Be part of the system. If somebody hasn't chimed in, go right ahead, because we got a lot. I know the names on this list that I'm looking at, and there's a lot of good, solid umpires that we could help for your input. Be part of the system. What's that deep thought I had?
Jack, this is Sean Amos. To get back on the X marks the spot, wouldn't that really be a big issue with now working the wedge at home plate instead of first baseline extended and rotating on his hip, whether he's on the inside of the line or the outside of the line?
Okay, I got some of it. It was grabbly. Anybody else before I go to my deep thought? My deep thought is don't invent your own mechanics to suit your desire. Use the manual. I've worked with umpires. They look like an aircraft carrier, air traffic controller on the deck of a ship, and they have signals I've never seen before. You know, stay to the manual. If you stay to the umpire manual, you can work with a stranger, a good solid pregame, and you guys are all on the same page. The manual was.
If folks are putting in, if you're broken up or you're having some issues, you can go ahead and put in your question or response in the chat, and I'll make sure Jack gets it. I can tell you what Sean was talking about there, Jack. He was saying, he was giving an example of how X doesn't mark the spot. And the example he used was plays at the plate. It used to kind of be taught that you go first baseline extended, and then folks went third baseline extended, and they were always moving to spots. And now it seems that the kind of prevailing thought is staying on the inside catchers, or the catcher's inside hip, using the wedge, those types of things that don't necessarily take you to a point on the field, but allow you to adjust as the play to adjust.
Yeah, that is great. A lot of highlights on TV. You see a play at home and you see the umpire sliding up parallel to the third baseline instead of rotating to get to see in the seam, in the gap for the tag, and going to extended third baseline. That was a great point. So on mechanics, don't invent your own mechanics. Look, the manual will, when we start our season, we'll have a new manual with new concepts in it. So make sure you get on the MHSAA site and check out the manual when it's ready to go. Auditions tonight and every night. What do you think my deep thought was on that, or what's your deep thought?
I'd say every game is a new game. You start over and you never know what to expect. No two are alike.
Act as if you're being evaluated at every game. Someone's there watching you.
And that's what I said. You're only good as the last pitch or the last play you called. Because the last call of the game could be the best call you made all day long, but it's over with and you got a game coming up. And that's a great point of, if you go out on the field and you think that your assigner's there, or there's an evaluator there, or you're somewhere close to East Lansing and somebody from headquarters would be there, it makes your game better. Even when I know that I have a friend in the stands that's watching, I want to make sure that maybe he will pick up something and become an umpire. Number 10, my thought, but I have great judgment.
But you don't know the rules.
Correct.
Know the-
That's
my
a
point is,
good,
know
that's
the
a good
rule-
deep thought.
Yeah, know the rules and control the game.
Manage the game. Good point. Anybody else before you get enlightened by my deep thought?
There's always something you can work on or improve.
Always. Okay, mine. There's more to being successful umpire than getting your calls correct. And you brought up those points. First of all, your dress. You know, we're not in high school anymore where we want that umpire's hat for 15 years and fade out because it's cool. We want a good uniform on. We want pants that aren't pink because they're faded. Between innings, Scott mentioned it earlier. Between innings is so important. Managing the game and watching the game. I always had a technique on hot days. I would have water back by the backstop, never in the dugout. And during warmups, I would get a quick drink. Well, I would my catchers all knew I would put a baseball down in the batter's box. And when I went, and if he had a pass ball where, of course, I'm paying attention when I'm drinking the water, it didn't delay the game. Little things like that makes you successful other than calling outs. Number 11, wait. Just a second. When you see that, what's that trigger on a thought?
Timing.
Don't rush. Don't rush the call. You got all day. The call's the call once you made it, but you can't go back when you make the wrong one.
Is that you, Tom? That
That's
was
it.
great. Okay, here it is. Delaying is proper timing. We all are taught that. We all are taught little games, how to bring our timing, not leave it in the trunk of the car and have it out there. It's waiting longer to announce a call. You see it, process it, then call it. And we go back to the one slide that we had about umpiring 101. That's what every school, no matter what level, from pro school all the way down to a weekend 2-hour clinic, is that they want you to have timing. See it, process it, then call it. Own it. Well, most of the time. My thought was own it, and then I had most of the time. Anybody got a thought that triggers? It could be your thought, not mine.
Hey, we're human. We make mistakes. We can correct it in the future, so to speak. But if I made the mistake and it's nothing that deals with the game in a adverse way, I'm going to let them know, hey, I messed up, and then away we go.
Good input. Anybody else? We're not perfect, so don't be afraid to say. But just don't say it too many times. Coach, you're right. I missed that one. But don't be afraid. We've all the experienced umpires had ones where said, oh my gosh. And when you get challenged on it, what can they say? How can they argue it? All they can do is kind of maybe snipe you on the way back and say, yeah, you're better than that, Scott. Own it. Part two. What do you think? What's that trigger? What's another own it?
Make your calls with confidence.
Good one. That's a good one. Anybody else?
Make sure we get the rule correct. If it's a safe out call, we botch it, so be it. But we got to make sure we get the rule correct.
Okay.
I'm looking at the pictures of the 3 umpires getting together up there.
Well, here it is. There are times to get help, and there are times when we can't. I know that a lot of times we have an umpire behind the plate watching touches, and then we have a base umpire that is tracking the ball and coming in. He makes a call, and what do? They go to the base umpire, says, will you get help? Or they go to the base umpire or the home plate umpire, says, will you help him? We don't get together. If there's a play at a base, I'm not getting help. You know what? I have the same thing he does, coach, and move on. So there's times when you get help. Anybody knows when there is a time to get help?
Just say the field umpire isn't seeing
Now
there's
there
a
are-
bing bing play at first.
Now there are times
pull
to get
foot.
help when they ask for it. So they can,
Right, no runners on, pull foot swipe tag. That's an easy one.
how about a check swing?
Good. But I think we're, yes, let's change that. Scott, how about on foul ball off the batter?
Could be.
Can you pregame that so you don't have problems?
Absolutely. Pregame that. So if the base umpire sees it, call it. You know, if they see it hit him, just call it foul. That's what we usually do anyway. That's what I usually do.
Same thing on hit batter. If you see it, call it. But if you don't call anything and they want me to get help, I'm not going out because you would have called it. Okay. I couldn't find a picture of Billy Parker putting out a fire. Thou shall not pour on the gasoline.
Oh, Jack, I'll jump in again and I'll say the umpires are the only people at the field or stadium that have to act professional. And if a coach is going to question a call, we have to deal with it in a professional manner, knowing again that we're the only ones that have to act that way, which is unfortunate, but we all know how coaches get.
Yep, sometimes we're at a circus of clowns and we're the ringmaster and we're in charge and we just have to deal with that. We are prohibitive making things worse. And that you hit the nail on the head. We got to be professional. We don't need to be sniping. We don't need to get personal with them. You know, it's easy to say, I hear what you're saying, coach, but we got to move on. Also, I still hear the word, coach, you need to shut up. And that you want to upset a manager or coach, throw that out. There's power in the dirt.
Stay where you're at. If they have something to bring up to you, they will come to you. Staying in the dirt or staying around home plate and not walking all over the place. Just stay put and let them come to you.
Great. Anybody have anything other than that input? Other than that thought? Well, that's where I was going with that. Make them come to you, but always have somewhere to go. You know, with the new rules between innings and the discussions, which probably will be carried over again just because it speeds up the game. You want to make sure you have a place to go where you can walk so you can get away from a situation. You got power there. That's your dirt.
Jack, can I ask a question real quick, just of the group regarding that?
Yeah, go right ahead. You can.
So
You have
folks,
a title.
this year we instituted and partially, or was at least a catalyst, the catalyst was COVID, but we instituted a new procedure for interacting with umpires, coaches interacting with umpires, asking questions, disputing calls, asking for help, which required that the coach go to the foul line, and there were possible consequences if calls weren't overturned. I kind of wanted to get the sentiment of the group. You guys all don't have to chime in, but I would like to hear from a couple of you as to how that went, and kind of give me a little feedback on your thoughts on that. It is certainly something we are considering keeping in place beyond this last year.
It definitely helped out this year, and I would definitely go forward with it in the future. My opinion, it sped things up and it cut a lot of the BS.
Brent, I had it happen twice in one game by the same coach. He handled it awesome. But there's a lot of people that don't know what it is. They don't even know it's there.
Sure. Okay.
You know, it speeds up the game because you have the coach that wants to question a call at second base. He calls time properly, but then he takes that 5-minute walk all the way out to second base and all the way back. the new rule has eliminated that showboating.
Why did it take so long to institute that?
Well, I can tell you from my personal experience, if you guys know my background, I'm a old school baseball guy. I like baseball. I like the kind of the tradition that baseball has. And certainly arguing is one of those traditions, but being the only sport really that allows folks to come charging out at you at the conclusion of a play is probably not on that side that we want to be on. And as we're getting away from it, the hope was that we could kind of take advantage of the situation that we were in, find a silver lining, and find some ways to do this. I can tell you that the Coaches Association, or the folks with the Coaches Association, initially gave us some pushback, but I think throughout the rest of the season, it went pretty well from their perspectives.
Yeah, Brent, the only thing I would say is I liked the institution of that rule because I think it limited the times that coaches would come out when they really didn't have a leg to stand on. But when we clearly have a judgment call, like a safe out call on a stolen base at second base, and the coach comes to the third baseline and waits for us to come over, we're not going to go over there because we know we're not going to change our call and he's going to lose the conference. The perception of that is the thing that got me more than anything else. Is the perception is you're not even willing to come over and talk to me about this, knowing that I'm not going to change my call. I like the call in and of itself, the way that the process runs, but I think maybe minor modifications to require the same type of thing where we can still go over and say, hey, coach, I had the ball there before the tag or before the foot got to the base, something simple like that, that wouldn't be argumentative, but just explanatory without losing that conference would maybe be something to consider.
Sounds good. Thank you. Appreciate that. Sorry to interrupt, Jack.
Oh, good. This is good stuff. I mean, we don't have that many on, but the umpires on this call right here gave you good input. Okay, it's never over when it's over. Anybody got a deep thought on that?
If the game's been contentious or ends on a controversial play, we need to be ready for any inappropriate behavior post-game.
Good, that's your thought. That's triggered a good thought for you.
Take care of your business if you need to after a game. If you have a disqualification or ejection, MHSA has their process that we need to follow. Our assigners typically ask us to notify them so they don't find out we had an issue at a game before they hear it from us.
Great, Steve. My thought was pre-analysis is critical. And if there's a report to be written, write it. What else can we do on the way to the parking lot, to trunks or the back end of our trucks that we're working? What else can we do that would help us as players grow?
If there was a play that you weren't sure about or that was kind of odd or goofy, you could ask your partner about that, or, hey, did I handle that right? Or what do you think we got that right?
Great. I've always had the theory is they don't ask me, I don't say anything. I don't want to come on an umpire that, never came up the line or called time every time, second base. I normally just leave that alone. If they come to me and say, hey, what do you got, Jack? Well, I'll come up with two positives right off the bat. Find something that I remember that they did. If it's even to the point that, you know what, you really look good when you showed up to the game and you had the right hat on. So we want to make sure that we do have a good pregame analysis, but we don't want to tomahawk a guy and don't give him too much. And one last thing, let's say that you're working with somebody and with no runners on, every single inning but one, they came up the line for pulled foot swipe tag. You don't need to mention that. You don't need to say, well, in the second inning, you didn't come up the line. they came up the line a lot, so they got it. They just missed it once. What goes up? What's my deep thought on that one?
What goes up?
What goes up? Well, remember where you came from and pay the lesson you've learned forward. I've always looked at umpiring as I've been withdrawn from the bank a lot of times during my years. Withdrew from the association with information, camps, other umpires. And now it's time for me to make those deposits back into the bank. We need more of that. We need a legacy. We need people to say, what's my legacy in baseball or any sport? You don't want to have the legacy, if you're, paycheck Paul. Yep, that's all I know, Paul. I hope there's no Paul in this call. I worked with the paycheck, or I'm the one that never helping. Every association needs volunteers. Take your knowledge and put something back into the game. When all else fails. What deep thought does that trigger on you folks?
Fall back on your training and your knowledge of the rules.
Well, for this one, when I kick a call and a coach comes out and questions me, I always can say, I know what I saw and I know what I called, and neither one of them the same. And they just look at you dumbfounded. So that was a little humor at the end. And I see that it didn't catch, but that's okay.
From those who have worked
wanna-
with Jack before, I understand where that comes from.
Yeah. I want to thank everybody for taking the time and let me give some input of a great game. I hope everybody has a great summer. Some people are still working adult ball and summer ball and travel. Enjoy these times right now doing baseball. And I'll let Brent close it out. And thanks again, everybody.
Thank you, Jack.
Thanks, everybody. This has been recorded. It will be released on July 31st with the rest of the videos for Officiate Michigan Day. I encourage you to join us for other presentations. We have a number of presentations and also some panel discussions that have already taken place that will be released at the same time. But it is good to have the presenters have some folks to do some interaction with. It makes the presentation better. So I encourage you to jump on those. We have a number for associations, recruiting and mentorship coordinators, and general officiating sessions. Keep your eyes on email and for those Zoom links when they come across. Thanks for joining us. Have a good night.